You might be making an expensive mistake if you're moving to the Boston area and picking New Hampshire over Massachusetts purely because you assume it's cheaper. And here are a few reasons that few people are going to tell you. Everyone knows that New Hampshire is cheaper. There's no income tax, no sales tax. It's practically gospel at this point. But the headline is hiding a few important details that can completely change the math depending on where you settle, where you work, and whether or not you have kids. So today we're going to put it to the test. We're going to answer the question. 7 rounds, real categories, a winner declared after each round, and a final score at the end. If you're deciding between the North Shore and Southern New Hampshire, this is the video to watch before you decide anything. All right, here we go. Round 1, income tax. This one's not even close. New Hampshire has no state income tax on wages, none. Massachusetts has a flat income tax on most earned income, plus an additional surtax on income above a certain threshold. If you are a W-2 employee living and working entirely in New Hampshire, that's real money staying in your pocket every single paycheck. Point New Hampshire. Round 2, property taxes. New Hampshire has no income tax and no sales tax, which means that the state leans heavily on property taxes to fund schools and local services. As a result, New Hampshire's property tax burden tends to run higher than Massachusetts across the board. This is the trade-off that the New Hampshire is cheaper headline conveniently leaves out. You're not avoiding taxes by moving to New Hampshire, you're just shifting which tax you pay the most of. Now here's something worth watching closely if you're leaning towards the Massachusetts side of this. In recent years, a record number of Massachusetts towns have been asking voters to approve property tax overrides, which let a town raise taxes beyond the normal annual cap to cover rising costs. That trend has been closing the gap between these two states. So Massachusetts isn't standing still here, but even with that shift, New Hampshire still tends to carry the heavier property tax load overall, especially for homeowners with larger properties. So it's tied up 1-1 after 2 rounds. If you think you've got your strategy figured out, make sure you listen to what's next. Round 3 is where it gets interesting. Here's the part that almost nobody factors in. If you move to New Hampshire, but you keep your job in Massachusetts, and you're physically working in a Massachusetts office, you are still required to pay Massachusetts income tax on those wages. There's no reciprocity agreement between the two states. Living in New Hampshire does not exempt you from the Massachusetts income tax if your paycheck is coming from work performed in Massachusetts. So if your entire relocation plan is move to New Hampshire, skip the income tax, and you're still commuting into Boston 5 days a week, that plan doesn't work the way you think it does. The only way around it is if your employer is based in New Hampshire or you're a genuine full-time remote employee working from your New Hampshire home. So round 3 actually goes to Massachusetts. As we'll learn next, the cost of taxes makes the math a little bit harder. Massachusetts pulls ahead, even with that gap narrowing. But round 4 is a little bit different, and this one isn't about money at all. Round 4. Where do you actually want to spend your weekends? Cape Cod versus the White Mountains. This isn't really a fair fight to score because it's not about which one is better. It's about which one is you. If you're an ocean person, beach days, lighthouses, fried clams on a port somewhere, Cape Cod is sitting right there as part of the Massachusetts package. If you're a mountains and lakes person, hiking, fall foliage, cabin near the lake, the White Mountains are practically in New Hampshire's backyard. They're so easy to get to. But regions get you genuinely incredible options. You're just choosing which version of a weekend getaway fits your life. And really, you can do both. So we'll call it a tie because it genuinely is one. No points awarded, just a question worth asking yourself before round 5. Are you thinking about relocating north of Boston? Well, I've got just the thing for you. My team and I have actually taken the time to create the ultimate relocation guide, which is meant to save you hours of research, and I've linked it down below. From top employers to the best hospitals and a boatload of other things that you need to know before making a move. The best part is that this guide is 100% free. That's right, you heard me right. It's just 100% free. So just click the link in the description or the top pinned comment. Hope that helps. Round 5, sales tax. New Hampshire has 0 sales tax. Massachusetts has a statewide sales tax on most retail purchases. If you're buying a car, furniture, electronics, or anything big ticket, that adds up fast. And here's the part that makes this round even stronger for New Hampshire. If you're on the North Shore, you don't even have to move to take advantage of it. If you're living near the border, you can simply drive over into New Hampshire for most day-to-day purchases and skip the sales tax entirely. No relocation required. That's a real ongoing advantage for anyone close enough to the border to make it part of their normal routine. You cannot, however, buy a car in New Hampshire and bring it to Massachusetts to avoid the tax. They're smarter in that. So we're tied here again, but with a slight advantage to New Hampshire. Before we get into the next round, here's the one that decides this for a lot of families, so stick around, because round 6 is the one that most people relocating completely underestimate. Round 6, education. Massachusetts has consistently ranked among the very best states in the country for public education by basically every major measure. test scores, graduation rates, school quality. Now that doesn't mean that New Hampshire schools are bad. They're far from it. There are some really excellent, well-regarded school districts in New Hampshire, but on the whole, statewide, Massachusetts is far and away the leader. If education quality is a top priority for your family, this is a category where Massachusetts has the edge, even though the right district in New Hampshire can absolutely compete on a town-by-town basis. So Massachusetts takes the lead heading into the final round. This actually decides for a lot of people. Round 7, your commute. If you're moving to Southern New Hampshire but keeping a job in or near Boston, you need to count the real cost of the commute: gas, tolls, vehicle wear and tear, and the time that you're losing every single day. That commute cost doesn't show up on a tax form, but it's just as real as anything that we've talked about so far. It's about lifestyle. For some people, the extra commute is worth it for more space, a quieter town, and lower day-to-day costs. For others, the time and money spent commuting wipes out a big chunk of whatever they thought they were going to save by choosing New Hampshire. Now, this one isn't a clean win for either side. It depends entirely on where you're moving to, where you're working, and how much your time is worth, and how much you want a lifestyle change. So there's your scoreboard. Massachusetts edges it out with 1 too close to call and 1 dead heat. It's 3-2, it's really close, but here's the real takeaway. This isn't actually about who wins on paper, it's about what matters for your specific situation. If you're not commuting into Massachusetts for work, the income tax and the sales tax savings in New Hampshire are real and they're significant. If you are commuting, the math changes quickly, and the property tax difference can take back a lot of what you thought you were saving. The New Hampshire is just cheaper headline is not wrong, but it's not the whole story either. It depends on your income, whether you own or rent, whether you have kids in school, and where your paycheck is actually coming from. If you're weighing a move between the North Shore and Southern New Hampshire, that's exactly the kind of math worth running before you decide. And I'd rather walk through your specific numbers than have you guess based on a general rule of thumb. Oh, one more thing before you go. Tax rules and rates change, and they vary town by town and by individual situation. I gotta say it, nothing in this video is tax or financial advice. Talk to a qualified tax professional about your specific circumstances before making this decision and making anything based on this. So drop a comment, tell me where you landed. Did Massachusetts actually win this debate for you, or does New Hampshire still come out ahead once you run your own numbers?